Good morning. Welcome to the Unitarian Universalist Meetinghouse of Provincetown, where we affirm the inherent worth and dignity of every person, and where we support each other on our spiritual search for truth and meaning. My name is Reverend Kate Wilkinson, and I am so glad that you have joined us this morning. Did you enjoy your extra hour today? I did. Now it feels like it's time to eat lunch. So we'll try to speed through this church thing. Welcome to those of you in the room, and welcome also to those of you joining us on our live stream. Before we begin our worship service, I have just a few announcements to share. Our treasurer and board of directors finalize our 2023 budget next Sunday. So please, Meetinghouse members, if you haven't handed in your 2023 pledge yet, please do so this week so that we can know what plans we can make for next year. And of course, the membership, all of you will have an opportunity to vote on that budget at our annual meeting on December 4th. We have paper copies of the pledge sheet downstairs. They're bright yellow, and you can also fill out a pledge online. And speaking of membership, we have a date for our new member class. It's going to be Thursday, November 17th from 10 a.m. to 12:30 on Zoom. And there's still time to sign up if you have been thinking of joining our community more formally. And here is a special invitation that I want to make to our friends from afar. They live in that. Now that we are live streaming our worship service and Zooming our coffee hours and hybridizing so much of our programming, you too are encouraged to think about becoming members of the Meetinghouse. If you get something out of our messages each week, and if you'd like to support this place that supports you on your spiritual journey, please do consider becoming a member. It's the best way to ensure that this spiritual community remains a thriving one. And it's also a great way to get to know other folks who tune in each week, both in person and online. You can sign up for the new member class by calling or emailing the office at uumh.org. A big thank you to all of you who volunteered at the Halloween Greet and Treat, and to all of you who donated candy or lent us items for our display. We gave out candy and books to 150 children over at Mata Field on Monday. It was a really sweet night in more ways than one. Those of you attending today in person, you will have access to our leftover Halloween candy at coffee hour today out on our lawn. And of course, there will be coffee and good conversation as well. All of you are invited to our Zoom coffee hour Tuesday at 5 o'clock. We talk about the question of the week, and we also share a time of joys and sorrows with one another. Let us know if you need that link. And finally, I remind you all, in our role as engaged citizens in our larger community, to vote on Tuesday if you haven't already. And now let us continue by affirming our community's covenant. I invite you to repeat each line after me. Love is the spirit of this meeting house.
Love is the spirit of this meeting house.
This is our great covenant.
This is our great covenant.
To dwell together in peace.
To dwell together in peace.
To seek the truth in love.
To seek the truth in love.
And to help one another. At this time, I invite Kathleen and Pat to light our chalice for us. As we light our chalice here in the sanctuary, I invite those of you watching from home to light a candle wherever you are In that way, we can feel connected even as we are apart.
The dark around us, come, let us meet here together, here in our holy room, here on our little floor, here in our day-lit sky, rejoicing mind and eye, rejoining known and knower, light, leaf, foot, hand, and wing, such order as we know, one household, high and low, and all the earth shall sing. Wendell Berry.
Thank you. Please join me now in a spirit of meditation and prayer. If you have a joy or a sorrow on your heart this morning, you're welcome to light a silent candle during the prayer or at any time during the service at the table to the right of the pulpit. And there is a journal there to record your thoughts and prayers. But before I share our meditative prayer this morning, I want to say just a few things about the song that comes after the prayer each week, Spirit of Life. Kimberly French, who writes for UU World magazine, once said, in 6 short lines, Spirit of Life touches so much that is central to our faith: compassion, justice, community, freedom, reverence for nature, and the mystery of life. It's a very special song, and we are not alone in including it in our service each week. I'm wearing my, where's Ellen? Ellen, I'm wearing my Spirit of Life stole. It's got roots that hold me close and wings that set me free. Spirit. During these lingering pandemic months, a different soloist has sung this song for us each week, and we are so, so grateful. It was like a balm for our soul. And still, we missed singing the song together as a congregation. The board recently voted to reintroduce congregational singing. Yay! So this morning, for the first time in 3 years, we will be singing Spirit of Life together after the prayer. You can find it in the Sing the Living Tradition hymnal, the gray one, number 123, or you can look for a purple laminated card in your pew with the lyrics on it. Spirit of Life was written by songwriter, spiritual feminist, and social activist Carolyn McDade. She is 87 now and living in a nursing home here on Cape Cod. When the UUA Hymn Book Commission approached Carolyn about including her song in the Singing the Living Tradition hymnal, she was reluctant. I thought of it as a living prayer, she said, not a hymn. I don't feel like a hymn writer. Also, the creation of Spirit of Life was very personal to her. And I'll tell you how it came to her this morning, because I wonder if you might relate to how she was feeling when she wrote it. And I wonder if it might deepen your connection to the song Spirit of Life, to know how it was born. One night in the early 1980s, Carolyn was driving her friend Pat Simon home from an activist meeting. She thinks it was a meeting for Central American solidarity, but she was involved in so many causes that it might have been something else, an anti-nuclear power demonstration, a Harvey Milk remembrance, a women's rights coalition meeting. What she does remember clearly is the feeling she had as she dropped Pat off at her house after that long meeting. before heading on to her own home. She was tired. She was discouraged. Not with her community, but with the world. It was getting to her. She said to Pat, "I feel like a piece of cardboard that has lain in the attic for years, drying up. Just open wide the door and I'll be dust." Instead of trying to boost her spirits or tell her she was wrong, Pat just sat with her with that feeling, Carolyn remembers. And she was grateful for that. And then she drove home and walked through the house in the dark and sat down at her piano. And she prayed. Her prayer was, "May I not drop out." She knew that more than anything, she wanted to continue with the movement for justice. And she prayed, and these words and that tune came to her, not came to her exactly, but came through her. "Spirit of life, come unto me. Sing in my heart all the stirrings of compassion. Blow in the wind, rise in the sea. Move in the hand, giving life the shape of justice. Roots hold me close, wings set me free. Spirit of life, come to me, come to me." So that is the song that we are going to sing after our prayer. And it's its own prayer, really. So I invite you to sing it like one. And at that time, Brenda will play it through once, and our little choir will lead us in singing it all together. Our prayer this morning is by David O. Rankin. I love to pray, to go deep down into the silence, to strip myself of all pride, selfishness, and coldness of heart, to peel off thought after thought, passion after passion, till I reach the genuine depths of all, to remember how short a time ago I was nothing, and in how short a time again I will not be here, to dwell on all joys, all ecstasies, all tender relations that give my life zest and meaning, to peek through a mystic window and look upon the fabric of life, how still it breathes, how solemn it marches, how profound its perspective. And to think how little I know, how very little, except the calm of the silence and the singing in the night. Amen. Thank you.
When Death Comes by Mary Oliver. When death comes like the hungry bear in autumn, when death comes and takes all the bright coins from his purse to buy me, and snaps the purse shut. When death comes like the measles pox, when death comes like an iceberg between the shoulder blades, I want to step through the door full of curiosity, wondering, what is it going to be like, that cottage of darkness? And therefore, I look upon everything as a brotherhood and sisterhood. And I look upon time as no more than an idea. And I consider eternity as another possibility. And I think of each life as a flower, as common as a field daisy, and as singular. And each name a comfortable music in the mouth, tending as all music does, towards silence. And each body a lion of courage and something precious to the earth. When it's over, I want to say, all my life I was a bride married to amazement. I was the bridegroom taking the world into my arms. When it is over, I don't want to wonder if I have made of my life something particular and real. I don't want to find myself sighing and frightened or full of argument. I don't want to end up simply having visited this world.
Now is the time in our service where we take a collection for the ongoing support of this meeting house and our shared ministry. And as we enjoy a light-hearted musical reflection by our fabulous quartet made up of Stan and Ada and Jim and Nina, we welcome your donations here in the sanctuary or online through PayPal or Venmo. You can find that information on our website, uumh.org. On and off-site, your offerings will now be gratefully received.
God of every choir member, we need sleep to sing our best. Help each singer to remember, take that extra hour of rest. Change those clocks one backward hour, don't arrive at church too soon.
God of church too soon. Or the anthem by yourself you'll croon. Amen.
Thank you, thank you. Some of you know that I'm part of a UU clergy study group that meets twice a year at the Craigville Retreat Center here on Cape Cod. Now, I'm so lucky because some of my colleagues in this group come from San Francisco, from upstate New York, Maryland, from Maine, and I drive 45 minutes to Hyannis. It's incredibly restoring, this time with colleagues, this time for study and for connection and for rest. Before we get there, we read the assigned book and write a paper about it. And when we gather, we take turns presenting our thoughts and discussing them. We worship each day for 3 days. We walk on the beach and eat together. We share ideas. Some years, we hear an odyssey by an elder colleague, which is basically a short autobiography, a look back over their life and ministry. It's fascinating and tender. Lately, when we gather, we spend a little time lamenting what we have each lost and lost collectively during the pandemic. We aren't sure how to measure our ministries anymore. If it's simply by numbers, well, we're all failing. But it doesn't feel like we're failing. It still feels like an honor to do this work, that it's needed, that it's holy, that it brings perspective to life that is important. Darcy Roque says, each of us ministers to a weary world. And I don't know if she meant to include you in that, but I do. I see you ministering to a weary world too. And maybe, like Carolyn, like my gathered minister friends, you are also tired, also have that dried cardboard feeling sometimes, and need to be reconnected to the spirit of life. My study group met just a few weeks ago in October, and my friend Nathan led one of the worship services. You know Nathan. He's come and preached to you here before. He's a very tall, white guy, serves in Sherborne, Massachusetts. Excellent preacher. He told us the story of going to pick up his daughter at the bus station. She was coming home for her first weekend home from college. Now, in my study group, there were 2 colleagues in the group with kids away from home for the first time. And it made me think of my sister, who recently welcomed my nephew home from UMass Amherst for a long weekend. You remember my nephew, right? He was like this high, wearing fake glasses made out of colored wax strings at my installation. Time goes by so fast, doesn't it? So Nathan was telling us about the drive to the bus station in Boston and how much he was looking forward to seeing his daughter. The sky is so clear, it almost looks like the ocean, Nathan says. And the golds and yellows are popping out like autumn love explosions crashing on the shore of the sky. But I don't notice, he says. Why? Because I'm late. It was not his fault that he was late, I should add in here. He is a very punctual guy, and he even left extra time to get to the bus station. But there was a ton of traffic that day, more than usual, because of the holiday weekend. And as he followed the little blue dot on his Waze navigation app, it looked like it was barely moving. And the other dot, representing his daughter at South Station, looked an eternity away. The time that it was expected to arrive just kept getting longer instead of shorter as he sat in traffic. A recent study on time had this to say, Nathan told us, that if we think we're late, if we think our time is scarce, we actually don't cherish it more. Instead, we rush to try to get to wherever and whatever we're going to. And in doing so, are less present to the time we actually have. And when we're less present and more distracted, time goes faster. The same study, he told us, said the fix, you want to know the fix? The fix is to think of your time as if you were a tourist traveling in your own life. Think of your time as if you were a tourist traveling in your own life, visiting your own life. What do you think? Should we try it? Mary Oliver says that she doesn't want to have simply visited this world, but maybe that's what will finally make us merry amazement. If we intentionally visit our own life so that we actually live it and not just rush through it on the way to something else. The tourists have mostly gone home from Provincetown now. We could take their place. We could visit our own lives, notice things that we don't usually notice, appreciate things that we don't usually appreciate, take pictures of things that we usually pass right by, greet each other like long-lost friends, because it's not just a regular old Sunday. We didn't just see each other. We are visiting this place, visiting one another, visiting our life. Maybe this exercise will make us more present, less distracted. Maybe it will make us enjoy life more. 2 weekends ago, I drove down to Madison, Connecticut to officiate my grandmother's memorial service. Now, my grandmother was Episcopalian, high church, but she was proud to have a minister for a granddaughter, even a Unitarian Universalist one. And she wanted me to lead her memorial service. She asked me to do that. So that's what I did with the help of the priest at St. Andrew's, the church that my grandmother and grandfather were founding members of, helped to build. In back of the church, there is a memorial garden where you can have your ashes buried. And next to that, there is a sweet little outdoor chapel in the woods. Just a few benches in a clearing with trees all around, and a big stone at the front for an altar. I described this to some of you at our Zoom coffee hour the other day. It was a beautiful day, and it was beautiful in the little clearing in the woods. Lisa and my dad went around brushing leaves off the benches as the rest of the family gathered and hugged. And it was just our family at the service. My mom and her sister and me and my sister and all my cousins. I have a lot of cousins on that side, and all their children. We ranged from age 80 to age 3. Now, we were gathered to remember my grandmother, my mother's mother, who died in July at age 99. But in addition to interring her ashes, we were also interring those of my grandfather, who died a few years ago, in 1988. My grandmother has been keeping his ashes on a chair in the corner of their bedroom since then. I guess he's sort of been keeping her company. When my grandfather died, they had a full Episcopal funeral service inside St. Andrews. He was beloved there, and everyone was so sad that he had died so young. He had lung cancer. Now, in 1988, my grandfather knew that he had cancer, but he and my grandmother had been planning to go to Florida that winter to visit friends. And he asked his doctor if he should still go, and his doctor said yes, of course he should go, that he was still alive, and that he should live fully until he was not. So if he would have fun in Florida, he should go. So my grandparents flew to Florida for vacation, but on the plane, my grandfather contracted pneumonia. And this, in the end, was what led to his death. He never made it home from that trip. My mother and her sister flew down to Florida, and together with my grandmother, kept vigil by his hospital bed until he died. And now, 34 years later, we were laying him to rest in the memorial garden of St. Andrews. Before the service began, I met with the deacon who was going to be the one to actually place the ashes into the holes that he had dug earlier in the garden. Now, this is a little behind-the-scenes minister thing. I can't even believe I'm telling you this. Bill knows this. If you are going to be spreading ashes, it's always a good idea to look inside the box or urn before the service to see how the crematorium has sealed them. Because sometimes they use a zip tie, and often you need scissors or even a knife to open the bag of ashes. So ministers know, check the box. So just before the ceremony, a little off to the side, we opened the box of my grandmother's ashes and cut a little slit in the bag for pouring purposes. And then we opened the package that my grandfather's ashes have been stored in. And to our surprise, we found not only his ashes, but also his wallet, which hadn't been opened since 1988. It was just there, resting on top of the container of ashes. So my mother just quickly put it into her bag, and we proceeded with the ceremony. My grandmother always said she wanted "In the Garden" sung at her funeral. So my cousins Logan and Craig played that on the guitar and mandolin. And Logan and my mom sang the verses, and we all joined in on the chorus. We each took a turn putting a flower into a vase and sharing memories of my grandmother. And then we went over to the little memorial garden, and the priest said the prayers of commendation and committal, and the deacon put her ashes and those of my grandfather into the ground. After the service, we all went to my grandmother's house, maybe for the last time, because it's now been listed up for sale. The next day, my mother remembered about my grandfather's wallet, and she took it out and looked through the contents. She found the usual credit cards and membership cards, but then she found also a little piece of paper folded into 4 squares and tucked into one of the little pockets, and she opened it. It was a prescription written by his doctor, dated a few days before he left for that Florida vacation. My grandfather had a unique relationship with his doctor. They were close and spoke honestly with one another. The prescription for my grandfather, John Fortin, signed by Dr. Fink, read, "Have fun, dummy." My mother wrote, "Reading his doctor's words set up a day of re-grieving his death, along with the more recent death of my mother. Following the prescription of having fun led in the end to my father's death," she said. "But after spending the day reflecting, I've come to terms with his doctor's prescription. Shouldn't we all live, have fun, until we are no more?" Maybe the doctor was giving this advice to himself, no less than to his friend, my grandfather. We didn't know it then, but Dr. Fink also had cancer in 1988. He died the same year. That study on time tells us that if we think we're late, if we think our time is scarce, we actually don't cherish it more. Instead, we rush to try to get to wherever and whatever we're going to, and in doing so are less present to the time we actually have. The truth is that our time is scarce. Mary Oliver says, "Doesn't everything die at last and too soon? Tell me, what is it you plan to do with your one wild and precious life? What is it that will allow us to see that life is not only brief, but also wild, also precious? Is it the death of a loved one? Is it the imaginary exercise to pretend that we are a tourist in our own life? Is it a song sung like a prayer that says, 'Spirit of life, come unto me'? Is it a prescription that tells us to have fun, dummy?" Of his arduous and stressful drive to South Station to pick up his daughter, Nathan said, "Eventually I did arrive, because eventually we all arrive. Every day is an arrival. Every moment is an arrival when you think about it." That same study I mentioned made the point that it isn't like all our moments are worth savoring, Nathan said. We've got email and homework, dental appointments, and hair in the drain. Some things just have to be endured. But the point it made is that if we slow down enough to ask ourselves what actually fulfills us and makes us feel alive, we might start making better choices about how we fill our time, or feeling like some hard times are worth it. It might even look like this, Nathan says, that as you drive closer to South Station, and even though you know it will probably be dark in an hour and the day you thought you'd have will be gone, and you see on your phone that blue dot that is your loved one, getting closer and closer to the blue dot that is you. And when you get even closer, you forget the screen and see there, on the curbside, that blue dot become the person that you haven't seen in 6 whole weeks, who you love more than life. And then you are there, back in your life, not late at all, but exactly where you need to be, exactly where you most want to be. The journey there, not important. The journey to come not important, just there, in your life, a tourist stopped in your tracks while everyone and everything is rushing past you. Nathan looked around at all of us tired, harried ministers gathered in a circle for worship and said, as Unitarian Universalists, we say heaven is not some faraway place, but here on earth. That is quite a faith claim given the times we are living in. But I'm ready to believe. And then he asked us, what part of your world, your life, do you most want to take a trip to? What is the address that you need to punch into Waze? And then he said, I bet you won't need to travel much at all. Amen, and blessed be. It has become our practice to pose a question based on the theme of the service each week. It can be a topic of sharing out on the lawn today or with friends during the week. If you want to delve deeper into this conversation, we hope you will join us Tuesday at 5 o'clock at our Zoom coffee hour. Our question for the week is this: what part of your world, your life, do you most want to take a trip to? What part of your world, your life, do you most want to take a trip to? I'll end with these closing words by Darcy Roque, with a small addition from Dr. Fink. There is too much hardship in this world to not find joy every day. There is too much injustice in this world not to try to right the balance every day. There is too much pain in this world to not heal every day. Each of us ministers to a weary world. Let us go forth now and do that which calls us to make this world more loving, more compassionate, and more joyful. Have fun, dummies. Go in peace.